This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carannante.
Welcome to the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carannante. The New York Yankees are an absolute wagon, cleaning up in free agency by signing the electric Paul Blackburn, who everyone was competing over. You can't deny Blackburn mania had us all in a chokehold last week. The frenzy was top tier, and he will be a Yankee moving forward. Can't wait to unleash this absolute demon next season. It's been a frustrating winter, to say the least. I saw it's December 22nd. Happy Monday. So, we're at the end of the year. We're approaching Christmas. It's the holiday. And so you've got people doing hey, grade the Yankees offseason graphics on Twitter and Instagram. It's still early. And if you want to be positive guy, most of the Yankees targets have not come off the board. Sure. So who have they missed out on? Not many. You guys are in trouble out here. But what have they done? I mean, again, end of December, we are grading off seasons. There's a month and a half when you hit January till spring training. We are grading off seasons. And the Yankees get I gave him a J- this morning. Gluing themselves to Trent Grisham, signing Ryan Yarbrough as a swingman, fifth starter to start the year. I like that move. And, but it's not even the kind of move that merits discussion on a podcast. It's just it's if you were hey, I started going to a new dry cleaner. You were that's not a doctor. That's not notable. As long as they're not tearing your clothes to shreds, they're fine. The prices don't really change. That's fine. It's probably more convenient for where you live or something. Cade Winquest. Paul Blackburn. I'm grading that. Ahmed Rosario, I'm grading that. Mercy. Meanwhile, the Red Sox go out and get Willson Contreras this weekend, late Sunday, and not even a player that really strikes fear into my heart, but objectively a strong bat, objectively somebody who plays first base for them, fulfills their needs, costs pretty much nothing, costs Hunter the Liar, Dobbins, and some pitching prospects. The White Sox go ahead and get Munetaka Murakami. The White Sox, is that somebody who really fit on the Yankees? It's been several years since he was a real rumor Yankees fit. Just watching teams like the White Sox play in the market that's slow perfectly into their hands. And I'm watching teams like the Yankees try to sell me on the fact that they're already good enough. We believe Jeff Passan last week saying, I think they think they're good enough to win the AL East. Not the goal. First of all, I disagree, but second of all, not the goal. Thomas Carannante, welcome to the show. I don't know how we do this to ourselves when all we've really got is a Blackburn signing to talk about. No concrete rumors, nothing about Tatsuya Imai. Aaron Boone doesn't know if they're going to schedule a meeting. I don't know if they're going to have meetings. Conflicting reports there, but one thing we know for sure, $2 million is going to Paul Blackburn. Actually, sorry, I misspoke. Up to $2.5 million is going to Paul Blackburn if he hits his innings incentives. What are we doing?
What are we doing? I don't know. Again, I don't disagree with the fact that this team can win the division. I guess that might be my hot take of the offseason, assuming they get one more impact player, Bellinger, Tucker, somebody like that, because they have the same amount of wins as the Blue Jays last year. And it was largely because Aaron Boone or the front office refused to remove Devin Williams from the closer role early. A lot of the Yankees' problems over the past however many years have been self-inflicted, as we've seen with how they've let things drag on and cost them wins, and how they've let summer swoons kill their momentum and then have them working back from square one in August and September, and it doesn't bode well for October momentum. So again, they're talented, had a very good offense, but we pointed out the flaws in the offense. That discussion came to life again with Alex Rodriguez making his comments about the team's philosophy with Anthony Volpe and the younger players in general, Austin Wells, Jason Dominguez, etc. Signing Paul Blackburn, however, I don't know. What makes me nervous is this could be viewed as like, hey, the guy can hybrid in the back end of the rotation in the beginning of the year while we wait for injured players to come back. Then we can slide him into the bullpen. And I guess he has that experience, but the recent results have been terrible. And even last year with the Yankees, he was in mop-up duty, essentially doing next to nothing. His ERA was inflated because of that 1-7 earned run outing where they just left him out there to die so they wouldn't have to use any of the other bullpen in a blowout loss. That was to the Red Sox, I believe. But I don't know. I read a little bit more. Apparently, they upped his sinker and cutter usage, and that resulted in some success. Is that going to help? I literally don't know. I don't know what we looked at the bullpen depth chart last week, and we started naming off names, and we're like, are we sure these players are going to be here? Is this what they're going to be? Is this what they're aiming for next year? And I think for the most part, they did their legwork at the trade deadline, and they're hoping that it sticks for at least the beginning of the season, and then they'll reevaluate again, and then maybe they'll do a similar thing where they empty out a portion of the farm system for 4 players who, you know, 1 or 2 of which will be free agents at the end of the year. The other 2 will be around for 2027, 2028, something like that. All that to say is not inspiring confidence because, again, what the Yankees did last year did not inspire confidence. They played well enough to make the playoffs, and then they got to the playoffs, and the DNA makeup of their roster was not good enough to get by the Toronto Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays will regress next year. I don't think that the profile that they put forth in 2025 is replicable. It was more flash in the pan than anything. We gave the Blue Jays a lot of crap these last few years because they have fallen short and they have failed and they have not delivered upon whatever promises the front office made or whatever big moves that they had made to supplement the roster. So I don't think they're bad, but I do think that they wildly overachieved. I think that Ernie Clement and Addison Barger hitting 350 and 400 in the playoffs is just not going to happen again. It's simply not. George Springer, kind of a resurgent campaign. I don't think he's going to 900 plus OPS again next year. We will see. So maybe the Yankees are banking on that too, which I would not view as a helpful approach. I would say, hey, look, Blue Jays are probably going to regress. That means I should also get better. But it seems like the Yankees are saying, oh, we could probably save money. We don't need to get better. The Blue Jays are probably going to regress, and we can add someone like Paul Blackburn to do rotation and bullpen duty for us, and we'll see how far it takes us. But they don't get the problem with the Yankees with this move is that they just don't have the finger on the pulse of the fan base. They don't understand why this move makes fans mad, and they're out to lunch because if you're bringing back, they've made 5 signings this offseason. All of them were to retain the same players from last year on a team that failed. What do you expect that message to be when you're talking to millions and millions of fans? I do not know.
If your pitching lab is so great and you're so good at spotting these characteristics and turning it into something workable or something that could excel, then why do you need to spend $2.5 million because you spotted it in Paul Blackburn? Like that's it doesn't jive. Like if you can uncover talent that everyone else is overlooking, then do it on a minor league deal. Do it on the cheapest pact possible. We're not guaranteeing money to major league veteran Paul Blackburn in his 30s because someone on Twitter thinks that the characteristics of his pitches in his 8 outings with the Yankees indicate he could be Luke Weaver in 2026. Like it's so tiresome. And it's the first time this offseason that really again, Amed Rosario, I love it. Mm-hmm. Ryan Yarbrough, I love it. The biggest criticism that you could give to these other moves is that the Yankees are sort of filling things out at the margins and you don't have faith in them making a big move. But I don't think anybody could reasonably be upset with getting Rosario as a platoon option or getting Yarbrough on the cheap to fill in the rotation in the bullpen. These were valuable pieces last year, and we didn't really get to see Rosario with the Yankees because they traded for him at the deadline. And then, he ran into a wall and he played in the playoffs, but they didn't really get to unleash him and use him as a major part of their plan. You can't be mad that they're doing it, but you can be upset that it feels like they're running it back, bringing back marginal pieces, not only not going the extra mile, but not going any miles, not getting creative in any capacity, not looking at the rest of the league and wondering, is there anything we could take here? Is there any way we could get creative, clever? Is there anybody undervalued on other rosters that we can steal? Last week when we were going over the bullpen, we know the bullpen, it was not good last year. It was not good. It was 21st in baseball all summer long. It was the worst bullpen in the game. Like, ultimately, it settled in a place where it was only in the bottom third of baseball. But when they needed it in the summer, it was the game's worst bullpen. And we're looking at the bullpen last week and saying, man, I not only am I worried that they don't know it's bad, but I'm worried that there's really nothing they can do here because we don't have a lot of guys with options and we don't have a lot of roles up for grabs. You want to stash Jake Bird at AAA after you traded real prospects for him last summer? Only if you can't figure him out this offseason and into the winter and into the spring. And at that point, it's just a huge failure of a trade. Like, if you can never figure him out, then congrats, you failed. But you can stash him at AAA if you want to admit that you're pretty much defeated at this point. You can demote Yerry De Los Santos. You could demote Brett Hedrick. And eventually, you're going to have to move Yarbrough from the rotation to the bullpen. Unless you go out and get a starter, then you won't have to do that. Then he'll start in the bullpen, probably. But there's not a lot you can do out there without there are very few people with options who you can demote. Now Paul Blackburn doesn't have options. Paul Blackburn can't move. You blocked up another spot. You have said this is I understand we already have limited ability to be flexible here, but I'm going to go ahead and spend $2 million, maybe 2.5, depending on the number of innings, on another guy who can't be demoted. It has to be DFA. It has to be cut. Insane to me.
Should have just spent that money on Loaizaga.
Another person I don't want, but someone who, in my opinion, has a higher upside than Paul Blackburn.
Yep.
We were wondering last year. It just brings so many conversations. We were wondering last year, like, hey, I know it's only been like 15 innings, and I know he got knocked around by the Red Sox, and I know they've never used him in high leverage ever. Like, they used Paul Blackburn last year to close out 7-1 wins. He was good at that, by and large. But we were talking about, is he going to find his way onto the playoff roster? Isn't there a higher upside option they can go with here? In what situation would you use Paul Blackburn in a playoff game? Mop-up duty? Then what role does he really fill on this roster? And then he was on the ALDS roster, and he was good for nothing. He was a wasted spot on the ALDS roster. He pitched in an inning and a third. Don't worry, he gave up 6 hits and 4 earned runs and a homer in a game that you don't remember against the Toronto Blue Jays. But his FIP was 12.89 in that game. So a lot of room to grow. I'm not saying Paul Blackburn didn't show the Yankees flashes in his limited time with the team last year. I'm not going to dispute even that they saw something correctable or saw something in the limited duty that they said, we really like this, and now we can build. Right? But I just don't understand guaranteeing any number at all to this player who has limited, like the comment saying if he earns the full 2.5 million, we had a horrible season. Agreed. So why are we adding escalators to the contract of someone who only pitches that much if you're screwed? Like, what are we? You're right. If he throws 100 innings, like, we're in trouble. Okay, great. Then why is he here?
Because he's going to start in April and May. That's why. And
what's Ryan Yarbrough doing?
It's a Carlos Carrasco. It's Carlos Carrasco 2.0, in my opinion. You don't know when Carlos Rodon and Garrett Cole can give us their projections, but setbacks happen. You just don't know how long it's going to take for either of them to recover from the surgeries they underwent. So expect maybe 10 starts out of Paul Blackburn. And if he does okay, then great. If not, then they DFA him or they use him as last guy in the bullpen. But then at that point, like you mentioned, he does not have options. So he's either perhaps the one good point here is that they could DFA him. Not a single fucking soul in the world is going to pick him up. And then they'll just put him at AAA. And then they can do whatever they want, I guess,
They're
at that
doing,
point.
isn't
So.
that what the Red Sox did when they tried to pay what's Cooper Criswell? It was
Yeah.
like his contract is so big that if we DFA him, he'll just clear waivers because who's gonna
No one's picking it
accept
up.
that money? And then the Mets did. So I mean, again, if yes, you're right. If Paul Blackburn is horrible enough that the Yankees have to DFA him,
Criswell is 100 times better than Paul Blackburn.
I don't think there will be anyone out there who's leaping to pay $2.5 million for Paul Blackburn, given how cheap all the other teams are. The Yankees are not the only team that is spending.
Exactly. And we've seen all of these other including the Yankees. The Yankees have made, I want to say, maybe 8 or 10 minor league signings this offseason. All these other teams are doing that. The Tigers have been doing that. The Cardinals have been doing that. The Red Sox have even made a few. A lot of these front offices are saying, okay, all quiet on the trade front and the free agency front. Let me stockpile my depth, see where it takes me. The Yankees have done a little bit, have done a lot bit of that, but that can't be the overarching activity from the end of the World Series until Christmas, because the message, once again, to the fans is, we have Ryan Yarbrough back and Tim Hill back and Trent Grisham back. And don't forget about Paul Blackburn. And don't forget about, there was one more, wasn't there? I think it was 5 people.
Winfest.
Well, I mean, they tried to draft him, but he was never a Yankee. No, I thought we returned 5 people.
Grisham, Blackburn, Yarbrough, Rosario, and Tim Hill's option, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, either way, they've sent the message that they're fully running it back. And remember, they don't have even a lot of infield depth. Anthony Volpe's out for the first probably 2-3 months of the season. Is it Oswaldo Cabrera who's then going to be roving around the infield potentially? It's the fact that all these other teams have done something, right? Even the Red Sox making trades, these other teams trying to get involved in something. The White Sox, we'll get to that a little bit later. There's teams making moves. The Yankees are not making moves. And it's either stubbornness on the front where they're not giving in to whatever the prices are. It's stubbornness on the front where they, again, thought they were good enough in 2025 to say, hey, we'll do it again, and then we'll see where the lockout takes us, and we'll make decisions after that. But I don't know how they could think, and maybe they don't think, but I don't know how they could think that they should be viewed favorably in any capacity, because this is arguably the most boring offseason we have experienced in I don't even know how long.
There was some good chatter this weekend and early this week about the harsh end to this haughty Yankees idea that they're just smarter than the general public and they know what's everyone can clamor for moves and we are confident in our program and you'll see. How about that? We'll get to the end of the year and we'll see who was right and who was wrong. And I know that it's harder to win a championship in this modern era than it was in the 90s and certainly in the 50s and the 40s. I know that. But I also know that the Yankees could be doing more to guarantee themselves the best chance. And I know that truly elite teams that cared about maximizing their chances of winning the World Series every year would overfill the rotation rather than underfill it by one or get right to the upper limit and say we don't need a 6th starter that anybody's scared of, or we don't need the bullpen. I think we're done. We're good on the Rule 5. We don't need to be paying $7.5 million or $11 million, God forbid, for Brad Keller. That's just, we don't need to be dancing in that. We're fine with Yeri De Los Santos, and Brent Hedrick will play a larger role. And trust us, at the end of the year, compare the numbers, and we'll be right and you'll be wrong. You don't have to spend recklessly to insure yourselves against the inevitable regressions and the things that you're going to wish you had done once the season starts. And then you're not going to have to be answering questions about why you didn't push harder. Because right now, everybody knows they're not pushing hard enough. You could luck your way into a World Series, I guess. You could make us all look very foolish. I'd be really happy if you did, because then I wouldn't have to do a podcast taking you to task for not going far enough. But right now, objectively, they entered. You don't lose the ALDS the way they did and then do nothing at all and then get clapped on the back for having smart strategy. Everyone who is a fan of this team and who is a hater of this team is watching the offseason knowing that they ended last season as one of the AL's 4 best teams, 5 best teams. Well, I mean, let's say you catch Roman Anthony in the Red Sox series, then who knows where you are. And the Red Sox knew they weren't good enough. They knew they needed impact bats. The Blue Jays were good enough to lead the Dodgers in the 9th inning of Game 7 of the World Series. And they're out there signing Dylan Cease. And they're out there the favorites for Kyle Tucker. These teams that didn't win the World Series are looking at their seasons and saying, we were not good enough. And the Yankees were saying, we are good enough to win the AL East. We believe that internally. Not wrong. Tied the Blue Jays for the division lead last year, technically, and lost on a head-to-head. But you weren't better than the Blue Jays. You weren't better than the Mariners. You were not better than the Dodgers. Nobody was. Nobody
weren't better than the Tigers.
You might have been better than the Tigers. You were better than the Guardians, and you got a favorable draw against the Red Sox in that time of year. So I think the fans are spoiled. Obviously, we know they're spoiled. No one is saying the Yankee fans are not spoiled, but they're also not foolish. They're not sitting here and buying it. They're not sitting here and saying, you know what? I actually forgot that we had 94 wins last year. The Yankees are right. We're in a great spot. We can just stay healthy all year. We can just get 99th percentile outcomes from our whole roster all year. We'll win the World Series. Max Fried stayed largely healthy last year.
Yeah.
You want to guarantee me that happens this year? Carlos Rodon has already gone down. Garrett Cole isn't back yet. Cam Schlittler was phenomenal in the first round of the playoffs against the Red Sox last year. I'm scared of what happens if he goes down. Who's behind him? And that's somebody who I've spent 2 months with as a fan that I'm saying we can't lose him from the rotation. Otherwise, we're in trouble. It's someone who's spent like a month and a half with the team. That's not a position you should be entering a new season with. And if they bring back Cody Bellinger, a move I would approve of course. Who's going to say no, depending on the number of years? I would approve of bringing Cody Bellinger back. But are you better than last year as you block out Jason Dominguez and you try to flip him for a pitcher I'm not confident in and you sell low? The comments asking if we're going to do a Zach Short deep dive. I'll do a Zach Short deep dive. Guy sucks.
Bad. Negative WAR for his career in the major league level.
A 220 hitting infielder maximum with no power and an OPS in the 580s or low 600s.
Good defense.
Bring him on.
Good defense. It's
good.
It's good defensive depth in case of an emergency. So, hey, curse me before. I didn't say they were getting any depth through the big league roster. They did. I mean, it's the fringes of AAA, and they can bring them up in the event something happens or if they need insurance, whatever. But yeah, whole lot of nothing there. In terms of the Yankees being themselves, and again, thinking they're better, thinking that they have the superior approach, or just thinking you can't weigh in our process. We know our process is great. Our process is, you've seen it. And we're like, yes, you've won the division for multiple years.
You're really good at making the playoffs.
Yeah, really good at making the playoffs, really good at ranking top 3 in the league in offense. And just to quickly go over what A-Rod said on WFAN about Volpe and the Yankees, quote, broken hitting philosophy, there was a lot of backlash from that. I saw Mike Petriello tweet out, yeah, Volpe has been a disappointment for 3 years, but the Yankees were among the tops in the league in offense. So give me, quote, broken, if that's what broken is. And I think that exact, and he's not wrong, right? If you're a fan of a team that's bad, you're like, all right, if the Yankees are doing it wrong and they're still, number 1 in the league for most of the year in all of the metrics that really most people care about, then yeah, I'll take that as opposed to my number 17th ranked offense or just middling team in general. And part of it is understandable because it goes back to the entitlement, goes back to the, why can't we be better? Why everybody complaining about it's, yeah, we win the division and we get there, but why aren't we winning World Series over and over again? And it's not even about being perennial World Series contenders or being able to establish another dynasty. It's just the fact that the broken philosophy A-Rod is referring to, which we're also referring to with like the above 500 record. It's gone on for, 30 plus years. That means the Yankees are royalty. Or, oh, they won 93 games, 94 games last year, and they won the division. That means things are good. But the same thing goes for the hitting approach too. Like, is the Yankees approach broken? I'd say there's arguments for and against that. Like, obviously, it's not fully broken because they're among the best in the league. But at the same time, you have all of their young players failing at certain junctures, whether it's from AA to AAA, AAA to the bigs, whatever you want to call it. And they view overall counting stats as the greater the greater result than other things in between. So, for example, you look at Austin Wells, 21 homers. It's pretty good. 21 homers from Austin Wells, right? Second year in the league, played good catcher too, but 0.1 WAR. Batting average goes down. Walk rate plummets. Like, that's not just because the homers are there doesn't mean the player is there. Anthony Volpe, again, 20, right near 20 home runs, but a 663 OPS and 83 OPS plus, regressing defense. Jason Dominguez can't hit from the right side of the plate, can't play defense. There's other players over the years that we could talk about, like plenty of them, but in terms of the most present examples, like Ben Rice, perhaps the exception. We've gotten 1 year out of Ben Rice. I can't wait to see more of Ben Rice, but we also saw the warts year one in 2024. There were problems with Ben Rice, both defensively and offensively. He fixed it and turned it around. Now it's about making it sustainable. But the three players who were viewed as cornerstones in Wells, Volpe, and Dominguez have not been able to sustain that and have regressed in many ways. So if you're looking, again, you're the Yankees and you're saying, well, we led the league in home runs and we had Volpe hit 20. We had Austin Wells hit 20. We had Dominguez putting forth good at bats. And he had a league average OPS, which is damn good for a 22, 23-year-old. And I wouldn't disagree with that. But did any of those players actually elevate the roster? When you look at the numbers, they all combined for under 2 WAR. 3 players combining for under 2 WAR. That's below replacement level if you average it all out, or right around replacement level. So that philosophy, that's the broken philosophy I think A-Rod is referring to. He's not saying the Yankees are bad, but when you look at the larger picture, who's carrying the Yankees offense? It's Aaron Judge, who's one of the best players of all time, and he does not use the Yankees organization for any advice. He has his own hitting coach that he made very clear at the beginning. Giancarlo Stanton, who hit 24 homers in 77 games, he's arguably the most prolific power hitter of the last 15 years. So you're getting power. The Yankees did not develop him. His power is among the most unique of all time. You have Trent Grisham, who was not developed by the Yankees and had an outlier of a year. You could say the Yankees helped with his approach, but history shows that it was probably just him finally getting a little bit more comfortable and getting regular playing time, which he wasn't really afforded the last couple of years, and fell off both in Milwaukee and San Diego. So there's that. Ben Rice, again, the exception. He's been great and he figured it out. Ryan McMahon added to the power numbers, but not a player that they have, and also not a very good hitter. Jazz Chisholm, not their player. So if you look at the larger numbers of it, the Yankees have not developed a majority of the guys who are providing that power, providing those walks, and providing that approach. And same goes for like the overall record. Like the overall record, 90 plus wins. That's great. Yes, but what does 90 plus wins mean? You beat up on mostly bad teams. You did not compete well against your division. You did not have a prolific win record against teams that were in the postseason. And it was enough to get you to where you needed to get to. And then instead of building off of that opportunity, and riding the lightning in the bottle or whatever it was, you fell face first harder than you ever could. And yes, I do value the victory over the Red Sox. I think that has good both mental and like cosmic value here because of all the bad that the Red Sox have put upon the Yankees over the last 20 plus years. But then you get to face another division rival, and it's night and day in terms of the competition. And Aaron Judge's signature playoff moment comes in a series where they got destroyed 3-1, and they needed an epic comeback to even capture that one win. So that's where, when people are referring to broken philosophies, it's broken because they stop at a certain point and say, well, the 20 home runs for this player is good, or the 90 wins here is good. So that should be nice enough for you, shouldn't it? No, it shouldn't, because there's a lot of other stats that go into hitting in baseball than just home runs and OPS. And there's a lot more that goes into baseball in between the lines than just racking off wins. We've also seen a lot of times in the last few seasons that wildcard teams have been particularly like, those are the teams with the better profiles who didn't need the 90, 95 wins again. The Braves in 2021, the Nationals in 2019, both the Rangers and the Diamondbacks in 2023. So the list goes on. There's a lot that goes into a team, a profile, and an approach, and the Yankees are just final numbers. Here's where we were. That's good enough. We're going to continue on doing business as usual, and we're going to ignore everything in between. So I think that's where the disconnect is, and it's something that they're never going to pick up on because they don't want to and they have no interest to.
Yeah, organizational philosophy. They're going to dine on Ben Rice for a decade as long as
and
he
Schlittler,
continues.
guaranteed.
Yeah, as long as he continues to play well and progress. Like, we found this guy at Dartmouth in the middle of the pandemic. I'm really glad that you did, but that is not one success story. Does not a program make. It's the outlier right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the fruits of an incredible development system. And like the comments are saying, firing the international scouting director and just letting his contract expire, not actually fired, but Brian Cashman deciding now is the time for a change. And the Yankees not being able to keep up overseas. I mean, the development of draft picks is one thing. Yeah, the development of a pipeline overseas where they're even a menace who can spend. It's been a long time. And the Wandy Asigan situation, last time we did a show, we were talking about how it would have been a real disaster if, for whatever reason, the scouting director's dismissal resulted in that deal collapsing like a house of cards. And then it did later that night. But I can't make heads or tails of that still. Someone's going to need to tell me why the scouting director remaining in place was the most important thing to this man, and not the Yankees franchise that he'd committed to 2.5 years ago, and not what the Yankees mean, and not the pipeline, and not the coaches that he trusted. And like, an international scouting director was dismissed, but it didn't require scouting to determine that this was a top 5 player in the international class. Everybody knew it. The Yankees put on a full court press to make it clear he was their top priority. You're really telling me that someone's going to have to explain this? And John Heyman was just as incredulous as I was over the weekend in a tweet. And if he doesn't understand it, then it's good that to me that I don't understand it either, because it means nobody understands it. You're really telling me that his strongest connection to the organization was the international scouting director, and that without him, all else fails? No interest in becoming a Yankee without the international scouting director in place? Someone who has repeatedly identified the wrong targets and thrown them into a failed development program year after year after year. Give me a break. In reality, I think he saw, who knows, I'm not there, but I think he saw a fracture, realized it was an opportunity to make even more money. And once he pulled his commitment to the Yankees declined to offer him, because the Mets got him for $3.8 million. And the Yankees had pledged $4.3 million to him. So I'm not there. I don't know what the conversations are like. The international market, especially the amateurs in the Dominican Republic, that market is terrible. They need to figure that out. It is so many handshake deals, so much impropriety, so much sketchiness. Disgusting. Somebody got in his ear and told him it was a good idea to break a commitment to the Yankees. When he came back to the Yankees, they couldn't settle on any sort of number, and he signed with the New York Mets for less money. So Mets fans are going to dance over the Yankees' graves and say, well, the Mets are a good org and the Yankees aren't. Are we going to give even a second of credence to the fact that maybe something untoward went on here? Or maybe the rest of the organization wasn't sold on the evaluation that the dismissed international scouting director put forth. Because he's the only one who's gone, and then suddenly the Yankees aren't interested anymore at a price point that is below what they had already committed. So again, I don't know what's going on. I'm not there, and no one can explain it to me because the process is so nebulous, occurring under dark blankets down in Latin America. Nobody knows what's going on, and that's the point. Major League Baseball doesn't want you to know what's going on. Like, nobody wants you to have the details on what's happening and why this agreement was broken.
Of course
So
not.
it seems like a travesty. It definitely seems like the Yankees getting lapped again. And if he is a superstar, then the Mets development system and whoever was able to break an agreement and broker this deal are going to get praised. But for now, I don't understand why everything is collapsing around the dismissal of someone who had to go, whose evaluations were wrong, who brought us Brando Maea and Roderick Arias, and every year is spending $4 million on someone who is a consensus top talent. And then here they come to the Yankee system and they don't hit when they show up, and they don't develop into someone who hits, and the raw skills just don't work. So it's really impossible to scout players at this young an age, but this guy's doing it wrong. So I don't have any issue with him being dismissed, and the Yankees brand being in extreme decline. It's hard to ignore that it does feel that way, which is, hey, if you are a team like the Yankees and you have a chance to get in on Tatsuya Imai with so few sure things in your rotation, the biggest criticism I've seen of the player so far is that, hey, we don't actually think he has an ace upside. He's more like a number 3. Well, the Yankees have a chance to make him a very qualified number 3 starter. The Yankees don't need an ace. Upside's great. If you give me someone with ace upside, I love it. But if all you can guarantee me is that you've got someone with good stuff, an interesting pitch, interesting approach, wants to be great, wants to take on the Dodgers, and again, if the Yankees are so proud of their pitching program and he's falling into your lap at the right price, then why would you not act? But especially given all of the bonus points you get if you are jumping back into that Japanese market, if you are reestablishing your prestige, if you're doing it for the first time since Masahiro Tanaka in 2014. That said, the reports over the weekend, quite sketchy. I mean, there were so many reports saying that the Yankees and Cubs are the finalists, right? That sounds nice. The current favorites. And then there were NPB scouts. Yankee source is claiming that the Cubs aren't a preferred destination, according to what he's hearing. Okay, great. So that means if Imai wants to be a Yankee and the other finalist isn't somewhere he'd prefer to be, then the Yankees pretty much have this in the bag if they feel like acting. That said, it doesn't sound to me like the Yankees have any interest in paying a top tier price. So if his market crumbles to the point where there are no preferred destinations chasing him for top dollar, and the Yankees are able to swoop in and get him for half of what they thought they might have to commit to him, then maybe they'll be in. But for now, if he's still expensive and the Yankees don't have a meeting set with him, and he's got to make a decision by January 2nd, and they don't know whether he's coming to America or meeting virtually. Kazuma Okamoto, it came out today, the third baseman, the versatile infielder, has met with the Pirates multiple times virtually. Is anybody meeting with Imai virtually? If anyone is, the Yankees aren't. So just want to throw that out there. I have no idea where he's going. Nothing about this weekend made me confident.
Is he going back to Japan?
I thought Murakami might go back to Japan, but apparently he was more content to reset his free agency, spend 2 years with the White Sox, and then when Freddie Freeman's contract expires, go to the Dodgers as long as he proves himself. Is someone going to get Imai on a 3-year deal? Because if so, that should obviously be the Yankees. But I can't make heads or tails of what's going on here. And are they going to commit top dollar to him? I find it hard to believe that they would, especially given the amount of money already committed to the rotation and the hefty payroll and the future concerns and the number of question marks elsewhere.
Yeah, I think, again, if you're re-signing Ryan Yarbrough and you're bringing back Paul Blackburn, it's at the very least ensuring yourself in the event Imai doesn't work out. In a more nefarious approach, it's the Yankees saying, we're not getting this guy. We need to build more depth. We need to make sure that we're okay for the first 2 months of the season. So we're going to roll with familiarity here and guys that we know we can work with in those two. I like the Yarbrough signing, don't really care for the Blackburn, but if there is any world in which Imai's market is actually being affected by whatever it is it the concern about his ceiling? Is it the concern about the lockout? Is it the posting fee? because that's a few milli, right?
Percentage of whatever your
Yeah.
offer ends up being. So the
Yeah.
cheaper the offer, the lower the posting fee. I don't know. The Yankees,
Yeah, I
Yankees
mean,
haven't been involved enough in the Japanese market for me to learn the new rules.
yeah, but and I mean, like, do they know that maybe his team is not going to? Maybe there's like a backdoor agreement where it's like you have to sign for X amount in order for the posting fee to be worthwhile for the team. Like, I don't know, but the amount of hype this guy has gotten, and the fact that we are 10 days away from him having to sign a contract or go back to Japan is concerning in a number of ways. It could be a play to say, oh, we're going to try to get this guy for the cheapest amount of money possible. But it more so seems like the Yankees are just not interested and they're giving the cold shoulder. You watched the last few episodes of Hot Stove, right? There is nothing going on. They have interviews lined up with prospects. They
They
talked to
talked to
George.
Caden Kent. Like, they
Yeah.
talked to the Yankees' 14th best prospect about his dad getting into the Hall of Fame. That's what Hot Stove has been this month.
It's wild. And God, George Lombard's interview, that was boring. But
George, have you learned to hit yet? I'm working on it. Do you find any power as you turn a little bit? You're supposed to gain strength as you age. Have you gained anything? Well, I'm really, just trying to be the best I can be. Holy shit. My God.
oh my God, this is revolutionary. They asking the funniest questions and they're like, oh, how do you persevere against adversity and stuff like that? He's like, very clear that maybe the young man has not experienced adversity yet, but good for him, but it'll come soon.
Hey, George, Lombard Street is a famous street in San Francisco. You ever think about that? Oh, yeah. No, I never thought about that.
Oh
That
my
is
God.
interesting.
the the reports from that, the analysis from Jack Curry from that, the Michael K over and over again talk shows. He was also on Hot Stove too. Like, they're boring. There's nothing. That means more than likely there is nothing brewing for the Yankees. Jack Curry always has something. He always has some sort of direction to push us in. He's greatly trying to push us in the trade market direction. Freddie Peralta, whoever else that they're going to, Joe Ryan. But I think these last couple trades have really screwed them. What the Pirates got for Mike Burrows is problematic. What the Rays got for Shane Baz, problematic.
Mm-hmm.
That's only increasing the prices that Brian Cashman is not going to pay. So a barren Christmas for all, folks.
Yeah, the Yankees are more likely to make a trade for pitching than sign pitching, but then Shane Baz, a proven bad pitcher, is going for 4 top 30 prospects. Like, yeah, again, I understand there's upside there and the velocity with Baz and the pedigree and first round pedigree. And Mike Elias has been chasing him since 2017 with the Astros when they got sniped and couldn't draft him and the Pirates got him instead. Yeah, sure. But these are hefty price. And then what does Sandy Alcantara cost? And what does 1 year of Freddie Peralta cost?
$1 billion.
What does Mackenzie Gore cost? And his 4.5 ERA and his bad fit with the Yankees, given that we already have high upside lefties. We need a change of pace. What is who am I? Oh, Nick Lodolo is the buzz over the weekend. Like, he's going to cost so much. You're going to have to pay prospect capital for Nick Lodolo, who's had one very good year and a sketchy major league career prior to 2025. Like, I'm not disputing the cost of Nick Lodolo. I'm just disputing whether that's the best value play for the Yankees, who could just go out and pay someone money. And rotation isn't even that dire a need. It's definitely a need. You're definitely thin, but you can pay Tatsuya Imai $22 million a year, or you could trade Jason Dominguez and 3 top prospects for Nick Lodolo. Like, I'd keep what we have. I would pay the man some money, but it is what it is. Yeah, Yankee fans, I love you. We are you, right? We are as desperate as you are. The propaganda is so funny. Jack Curry gets on Hot Stove and says, Tatsuya Imai, I wouldn't bet on it, but we'll see. Just wait. I don't think it's going to happen, but stay tuned. And then every Yankee fan account clips the stay tuned and leaves out the part where he's like, they're not even talking to him. So we'll see. The one comment here that the Dodgers are lurking is like the one thing I don't buy.
Yeah.
They just don't need him at all. He's made public statements that he doesn't want to be there. But obviously, if the market is empty The Dodgers know when to leap. So I just, it doesn't make any sense. It's too crowded a rotation. The Dodgers signing everyone is a meme for a reason. They're lurking for the entire world until they're proven to not be lurking. So I can't say like they're not, but for all the Dodgers fits, that one doesn't fully track to me. And hey, look, the Yankees are not, they're getting worse if they lose Bellinger. If they run him back, they're retaining what they had last year, and maybe they end up getting a few more diamonds in the rough. Maybe they graduate some more people from the farm. But the Blue Jays, like we said, seem to be the favorites for Kyle Tucker, who has almost no market. Signed Dylan Cease. I don't think the guys who were phenomenal last year in the playoffs are going to maintain that. I don't think Ernie Clement's going to hit 400, but they're doing what they have to do to make sure that, okay, we're keeping balance. We're losing the Clement hits. We're bringing in Kyle Tucker. We'll see. I don't know. The Red Sox had a chance to be truly scary at the end of this offseason, and I don't know if they're ever going to get there because Pete Alonso, Kyle Schwarber, scarier to me. Joe Ryan as the number 2, terrifying to me. They go ahead and get Sonny Gray, who we feel like we know what he is. Low 4s, high 3s ERA, a lot of strikeouts, durable, solid pitcher for sure. Willson Contreras, you can move the leaderboard around to show me that he's one of the elite bats in baseball. I think he's one of 7 guys to have a 120 OPS plus or higher for the last 7 years or something like that. Like, you don't have to try that hard to bend the charts to make it look like Willson Contreras is the elite of the elite. He's very good, and he hit something like 377 with 2 outs and runners in scoring position last year. He's a good guy, strong defensive first baseman.
He's a good guy.
St. Louis people were putting out propaganda that he won the good guy award after he like lost when they were moving him to left field from catcher and stuff. He never gave up. He was a leader in that clubhouse. I'll be the Grinch and say that clubhouse won no baseball games, so who really cares if he was a great leader? But really a good ad for the Red Sox. And he just cost Hunter Dobbins, who is a liar and had like no strikeouts last year and a fastball that nobody missed, and he got hurt. Hyoiker Fajardo, who's a top 10 Red Sox prospect. I do miss that the Red Sox would have had an actual Hardo in their rotation if they'd kept him, but it is what it is. And another prospect who's like a 6th rounder. And all 3 of those guys had unremarkable fastball data. And it's no surprise. This was a Yankees Twitter trade where it was like, how about 3 guys we don't want at all for your slugging first baseman? Are you interested? And Chaim Bloom was like, absolutely. And I'll pay you $8.5 million for the privilege of doing that trade. So it was lopsided, and it was in the Red Sox favor. They're not done. They could sign Alex Bregman. They have the financial flexibility to do so. They probably will. I guess they're probably out for Ketel Marte, but who knows? Or they could go off the board and do something crazy. They could still trade for Joe Ryan at the deadline. They've retained most of their top prospects. They could do some summer shopping. They had a chance to be really terrifying this offseason, and they've added pieces that are very good and improve them, but don't blow the doors off. That said, they're adding known quantities. They added a star first baseman. They added a member to the rotation who is going to help, not hurt, in a most likely scenario. They added Johan Oviedo, who's a moderate upside starting pitcher. They are making maneuvers to make the edges of their roster. First base was a hole last year. It was Nathaniel Lowe. Now it's Willson Contreras. I don't think he's one of the top 10 hitters in baseball, but he's an all-star with clutch pedigree who's way better than what they had last year. So they had an opportunity to turn themselves into a real juggernaut. They could still make some trade deadline stuff happen. I don't think they're done. I don't think they're as terrifying as they could be, but they're better than the Yankees who did nothing.
Yeah, they are. You look at someone like Contreras too. He is aging, but he pulls the crap out of the ball, which is really great for Fenway Park, and he's ranked in the top 7 percentile of maximum exit velocity every year since 2016, with the exception of 2019, and he was right on the cusp. So if you're looking at like weird advanced metrics that could appeal to you, there's that. He hits the ball hard, and he pulls the ball, and he's a power hitter. So it plays for the park dimensions, and it makes the Red Sox a better team without them having to find an all-around great player, or without them having to pay an arm and a leg for somebody who is going to give them, 5 tools. They don't necessarily need that. They had a hole at first base. They filled it in an underwhelming fashion this past year, and now they made a much better addition. The Yankees have not done that with a single position. Like even the Red Sox's addition of Johan Oviedo. That doesn't make them great, but it gives them almost a known quantity in terms of starting pitching depth. The Yankees don't even have that. The Yankees counter to that was Paul Blackburn, where they're like, well, this guy could maybe start, or he could be our mop-up duty bullpen guy. I don't know. We'll see. The Red Sox still have work to do. I'm confident of that. They still have not signed a major free agent. Do not overlook that. But they have made 3 trades, and they have improved their roster. And you could argue right now, even though they don't have Alex Bregman, they are better than the Yankees at this moment because the Yankees don't have a running mate for Aaron Judge, which is the most important role on this roster for the past however many years. So I'm not going to clown the Red Sox for this trade. I think that at the very least, it gives us a little bit of hope because Contreras is entering his mid-30s, and you would have to suspect if they have now made 3 trades and depleted their prospect farm system depth, however you want to look at it, not considerably, but enough to say we're probably out on someone like Ketel Marte at this point. And not to mention, they have added salary here. Like Contreras is making, I think, $17 million a year with the Red Sox.
Yeah, Bob Nightingale freaked us out by saying that the Cardinals were going to eat a substantial portion of the money,
and they ate 23% of it.
Yeah, it was substantial. So 75% of the contract, they're just giving him away for free. Based on the Hunter Dobbins, I'm not very high on. I'm not very high on who the Red Sox surrendered. So you see substantial, and you're like, oh, so they're paying the whole contract and getting nothing. But yeah, I guess the Red Sox really, the upside is they are paying actual money for Willson Contreras.
Yeah. So they have depleted some of their assets in terms of what they are willing to trade if they wanted to go after a larger candidate. And Sonny Gray, I understand the Cardinals are paying half of that, but that's still $20 million for the year. They've added about $40 million in payroll in those 3 moves, which is Alex Bregman's salary. Are they going to have enough to bring Alex Bregman back? I don't know. The Yankees could easily counter and bring in an elite hitter, and then they're, I think, right on par with the Red Sox. But right now, they're not. So Cash God operating in the shadows. Are you there? I don't know. But we're sitting here. We're waiting. If Craig Breslow can find these deals, I don't get it. If the Pirates and Rays can find these deals, the Brandon Lau trade that went down with the Astros, Rays, Pirates 3-teamer, why aren't the Yankees involved in something like that? We've seen a lot of these smaller trades, because that 3-team trade was not a blockbuster by any means, but it had some big names in it and top prospects moved. So you're sitting there and you're just like, where are the Yankees? They're not trying to get creative in any sense of the word with deals like this. And I'm not saying they needed any of those players. Would Mike Burrows have been a good depth addition to the rotation? Sure. He's been fairly promising in his early days, and the early part of his career got off to a tough start because of Tommy John surgery. Brandon Lau was a good candidate if you were thinking about trading Jazz Chisholm. I don't know. So there's just a million different creative ways to go about this, and all these, it seems like a lot of these other GMs and president of baseball operations are bending a little bit to wield that creativity when there's nothing that's self-explanatory out there on the market, trade market, free agent market, or whatever. And again, the Yankees are not doing that because they don't do that. They never do that. And at this point, this is where you say the front office just needs a philosophy change. It just does. Whether you think they're doing a good job or a bad job, it's just stale. It's outdated. It's not cutting edge whatsoever. It's traditional. It's corporate. It's my way or the highway, and it's just not going to make this team better.
I also just had no patience for Red Sox fans complaining about the inaction of Craig Breslow or whatever. Nobody has done more this offseason than Craig Breslow. Compare his inaction to what the Yankees are doing. It's no contest. The Yankee fans are watching. It would be unfair to even call it paint drying. It's like watching already dried paint. There's action when there's paint drying. At least it's drying. It's like I'm just staring at a wall that I painted in 2003. The the same amount of action. And the Red Sox, by the way, like Masa Yoshida now is crowded completely out of that team. That should be a huge problem for them. That should be like a drain on their budget and sitting on their, money sitting on their bench and trying to find playing time for someone who they can't fit into their lineup and trying to find a trade partner for someone with a big contract. But I guess MLB is just going to let them pretend he's an outfielder and stash him on the injured list again this year like they did last year. Probably.
I'll take him.
I'll take him. That guy's great, but he's also a clear DH. And last year, the Red Sox were like, yeah, we got to put him on the injured list. He's too injured to throw. And nobody was like, challenge flag. He doesn't throw. He's a DH. Everyone was like, oh, okay, we'll let you do whatever you want to do. We'll let you pretend you were going to convert him to an outfielder just so that we can all agree that he's now too injured to play outfield, a position that he does not play. So shout out to the Red Sox again in a bind here. But I'm sure they'll just be able to stash him in hell. Putting a really good hitter who I'd like to have on my team just in purgatory because they built their roster weirdly. I'm sure Major League Baseball will let them get away with it in the same way they let Hunter Dobbins get away with lying about his dad until somebody called him out on it. So very cool. Munetaka Murakami also, by the way, never going to be a Yankee and never showed the profile that he did several years ago when people were talking about the Yankees as the landing spot, he was their future first baseman. It's empty and he's going to be perfect to fill that slot after Anthony Rizzo or whatever. He didn't develop the way that we thought he would. There is certainly a chance that he finds some version of the best version of his power ceiling in Chicago. And it'll be fun if he does. That'll be great. This is definitely not to say the New York Yankees should have paid that. What? Look at that contract. The Yankees should have paid that. $17 million for 2 years. And no, that's a strange use of funds. The timelines didn't intersect. He was never going to be a Yankee. But it is a nice lesson in inevitability where, again, you're talking about, for me, the most prominent takeaway is the market fell into the White Sox favor. They were able to get a flawed player who does have a genuine skill to come and, hey, maybe he's just resetting and maybe he'll be a Dodger in 2 years, but pretty solid get. If you're the Chicago White Sox, you're trying to make a name for yourself, to figure out a way to convince him to come there. And $17 million for a year, 2 years is not nothing. The Yankees are struggling to get themselves to pay that for anybody. So for the White Sox to say, we have the wiggle room, we have the wherewithal, you may not be here forever, but you're going to be here for a good time. Why don't you come on down, show us what you got, prove yourself. And we're willing to pay you $17 million for that. Good for the White Sox. It's the same thing you're talking about with a 3-team trade with Brandon Lau going to Pittsburgh. The Pirates were telegraphically connected to Brandon Lau for several weeks, for like a month. And we were all saying, as we watched them strike out on Schwarber, and as we watched them strike out on Pete Alonso, and as we watched them strike out on Jorge Polanco, like, all right, so the Pirates were just doing, we tried. And then they're eventually going to strike out on Brandon Lau, and they're going to strike out on Ryan O'Hearn, and then we're going to get to laugh at them because we briefly believed that they were playing in the deep end, but in reality, they're not trying to compete. They were just stringing their fans along. And then the telegraph deal goes down. And they surrender someone in Mike Burrows who has upside, but I wouldn't say they should be scared to lose him, for a guy who fills a huge need there. Jake Mangum, a great glue guy, and Mason Montgomery, the reliever they got, had some of the best stuff in baseball last year. Not the performance to match, but that's a great lefty who throws 100 to add to your bullpen as the third piece in a trade. The Pirates made a great move. I'm not picking them to win the NL Central now, but that's a genuine makeover.
They're better.
Closer. They got better. They upgraded 3 spots. And so we didn't give Ben Cherington grace, and we didn't give the White Sox grace because they hadn't earned it until each of them made a move that makes you go, that makes your team better. And you took advantage of the way that the landscape was coming together. And you got something done to make your team. So Brian Cashman hasn't gotten the grace either, because for the past several years, he has not taken the Yankees far enough, and he has made maybe one blockbuster move like the Soto trade or the Fried signing, and the rest has been predictable and not long-term and has him scrambling year over year. And this offseason, the inaction has been so glaring, and the offseason has moved at such a glacial pace that no, he does not get grace for me. I'm not going to sit here and say the big move is coming. I trust him because of what I've seen so far and because of the ideal payroll statements and all that stuff. I don't believe. But I didn't believe in the White Sox, and I didn't believe in the Pirates either, and they proved me wrong. So Brian Cashman, whose targets have not gone off the board yet, has a chance to prove us wrong. Yeah. But not a fantastic one, in my opinion, considering recent behavior, recent statements, recent belief in people who don't deserve to be believed in, and the fact that if he proves me wrong by bringing Cody Bellinger back, that would not really drastically improve the team for next year in my eyes. So
That wouldn't qualify.
Even that move that would theoretically prove me wrong wouldn't prove all that much to anybody.
Yep, wouldn't qualify for me. I think it's got to be. Look, he came out of the winter meetings telling us that the prices for everything were not what they wanted. And we continue to see we haven't seen a lot of free agent deals go down. So I can understand him on that front. And all the free agents that came off the board were not fit for the Yankees, or they would have been luxury like surplus pieces that they didn't like. You don't need Pete Alonso. Would it have been cool if the Yankees signed Pete Alonso? I guess I would have been pumped adding
Really good player.
But potentially 40 home runs to the lineup. Sure, they could have figured out a way to fit him in, and it would have made the lineup better. So, like, I wouldn't have been overly excited, but you can't get mad at that. But if you're sitting there and you're saying the trade prices are also not where you want them, then perhaps you got to look elsewhere, because all these other teams are making trades and you are not. So what are you looking for? Are you looking for unaffordable pieces? Are you trying to lowball people and they're getting pissed off? That's also what it feels like, because that's usually what it seems to be when you look at the revelational reports on these trade talks and how they end up coming together. So yeah, whole lot of nothing. Maybe he wants an early Christmas. Maybe the Yankees aren't worrying about anything till 2026, but yeah, thought we'd have something for you today, folks. We're sending you into Christmas with nothing. So enjoy time with your family. That's all we got.
Yeah, I actually heard the value of coal is going up as a gift. So I was having this conversation over the weekend. Like, is that really a bad thing to get if you're a kid at this point, given the industry and, given fossil fuels and the prices those get you? Yeah, I don't even know if we have coal. Coal would be awesome compared to what we have. We have a rehabbing coal.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Not even an active coal.
Not even an active coal. A coal that might be back in June. But the Yankees are tough stuff. I was hoping you at least have a rumor to be chasing down.
Nothing.
Be able to come and give you our opinion on the show today about, like, ooh, there's smoke here, but what does the smoke mean? Is there fire? Maybe the package looks like this. Nothing. I mean, I don't feel great about where they stand on Imai. I don't feel great about what they think they need to do. And we did 25 minutes on Paul Blackburn.
How? Why?
Someone asked for a deep dive on Zach Short, and I was like, ooh, I should actually put that in the outline. No, I shouldn't have. We shouldn't do that. So, hey, I think if you're not resigned to maybe things looking pretty similar next year, you might want to resign yourself. But hopefully by next week, we have something. We're going to take the holoday off. We appreciate everybody joining us today. If you're a listener, if you're a watcher.
Thank you, guys. I don't know why there's this many of you here, but
you guys should really be with your families or traveling for the holiday. Like, I don't know, but we appreciate everybody who showed up. We appreciate everybody who listens after it goes live. Or if you're a reader, thanks for doing that. And we're going to be here continuing to analyze this very frustrating team. And we're not going to sugarcoat it. I can't tell. Sometimes I feel like we're too negative. Sometimes I feel like we're too positive. Sometimes I feel like even leaving the door open for Brian Cashman this offseason is being too positive. But I'm Adam Weinrib. Yeah. I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. Thomas Carannante, where can the people find you?
I'm at Tommy's_takes, everybody. Thank you all once again. You can also find us at the official Yanks Go Yard account. That is at Yanks Go Yard FS. YanksGoYard.com is the website. We will keep you informed with fun stuff over the holiday break. Historical pieces, evergreen Yankees content, and then anything else that falls in between if the league wants to keep the train rolling over the next few days. Appreciate you guys tuning in and reading as always. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. We'll see you before the new year, but until then, enjoy your break, enjoy your time with your family and friends. Do not let the Yankees get in your head, but we'll be here trying to inform you every step of the way, so don't forget about us either.
Yeah, trying to help. And again, we're giving you advice that we don't follow ourselves. Try not to let the Yankees get in your head. We say, as I go to bed thinking about the Willson Contreras return and why that was the price that the Red Sox had to pay. Rent free, yeah, you could say. You could also say the rent is expensive. They're paying a lot of rent. And I don't know. I guess there's a lot going on in my brain that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, but I will wish on my listeners. Thanks for joining us. We will see you before the new year, and maybe we'll have information for you. We hope. Until then, take care.